Right. So we need appropriate mugs.
Yeah.
Shut up. I'm very chuffed with how this worked out. Hello. This is my friend Hannah, who also does videos about being a student. Want to introduce yourself a bit?
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, as Jules said, I make videos. Also, I make videos about retraining as a physicist, which also sounds a bit rubbish. Just going back to university and doing something completely different from what I was initially doing.
So we have asked 4 questions about being an older student or going back to university, having already been, or anything other than just the basic usual path of high school, university. So,
yep,
we're going to answer some questions.
Woohoo!
So, first question we have is, how on earth can you afford it?
Oh!
So, I think that's quite different for each of us, because for me, my PhD was fully funded.
Yeah.
So I had funding from a research council, which is a government organisation, and then also I was funded by the Ordnance Survey in a extra, like, nowhere near as much money as from the research council, but I got a little bit extra each year from them as part of a scheme. For me, money was never a problem because it was already there when I applied for it. So I think you have more of an interesting story.
The question says, how on earth can you afford it? The answer is, I wouldn't have been able to until this year. There was no funding for doing a second degree, which you can understand in a way. It's like you've had your chance, you don't get more loans. But because there's a lack of people going into STEM industries, they have now, the government, the UK government, I think actually possibly only Student Finance England as well.
I think it is,
which is not fair. I only recently found that out.
Like, I mean, when I did my undergrad, they paid half my fees when it was the 3,000, so I only had to pay 1,500 a year. Yeah. So I had very small student loans, and like even with student loans, when you can apply for them, it seems prohibitively expensive now.
It's crazy. So last year I funded the foundation year myself, so that was £9,000, which I still haven't paid off, and half of that was on a credit card.
Ooh.
And this year my fees are covered because I'm part-time, so that is the only way I'm able to do this. But I don't get any maintenance loans, so I work part-time, which weirdly means that my 2 degrees I will owe less than somebody doing 1 degree under the £9,000 fee system and taking out all the maintenance loans because I'm working as I go. But I would say to anyone who thinks it's too expensive, if it's really what you want to do, try not to let that put you off and try and investigate and give it a shot anyway. Yeah,
because there are the things like the loans, there's all kinds of weird grants that apply to really specific situations.
And things weirdly come together, like I didn't think I was eligible for any bursaries, but turns out I was, but I only knew that once I started, so you kind of just have to go for it and hope for the best. But don't get too much credit card debt or anything like that, that's silly.
Okay, so the next one is someone not realising that I was in my late 20s, so thank you. And so thanks, Sam. And how much of a financial burden is it to go back to school later in life? Do you have to put a lot of money aside beforehand? So I think that's more of a question for you. I think we've kind of answered most of that already, really.
A little bit, yeah. So see previous question. However, I did save as much as I possibly could, which probably amounted to about 2 or 3 grand before I went back to university. But it was very difficult to know when I was going to go to university. It was a decision that I wanted to make, but it didn't seem like the right time. And then I had a phone call with my dad, and he was like, there's never going to be a right time, you just need to go and do it. So I was like, well, I'll take what I've saved already and we'll just get on with it. I think a friend of mine says, no matter what you get paid, you will always kind of live within your means. So the fact that I have £400 roughly a month now rather than the grand or so I had before, but it's way more than I had last year, so you just live with what you've got. I would say that it's it depends. So my situation, my circumstances, I'm not married, I don't have kids, I don't have any elderly relatives or anything like that, no dependents, so I know that I'm pretty lucky anyway. So I can just be that selfish. So it's not a financial burden, but for other people it might be a more difficult decision.
Then someone asked me just to make more videos of like vlogging my stuff.
But I think you should too, but I also know
I feel like it would just be boring.
That's what I feel about mine.
What I do right now is I sit at my computer and not write anything. And I don't think that's going to help anybody. Right, so the next one was, what are the job opportunities in your field after they say PhD, but degree, I guess, in your country? Is the industry better than doing research in the university?
That's an interesting question.
I haven't really thought about it because not to be too like depressing about my degree, but I haven't massively enjoyed the subject matter. I'm not intending on going into that field. I know that if I wanted to, there probably is something that I could do at the Ordnance Survey.
Most of the research I've done for physics, in terms of what to do, I would like to do a PhD, is research, and I'm quite attracted to that. I really would like to do research. But I'm also open to industry, but it seems like a lot of industry is geared to physicists that go on to do engineering, or something else, physicists that can do something else in industry. But there are pockets, I think, where you can be a physicist in industry. And industry being better than research, it depends, it's up to you, it's kind of subjective, and it's...
Probably pays better.
Yeah, probably does pay better.
But
if you're going into it for the pay, then probably go into industry, but I'm not, clearly, because it costs so much money to do this.
So yeah, there are a lot of crossovers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if anyone wants to find out, especially if they're an undergrad, then go and do an internship in industry and do an internship in research and see what you prefer.
Yeah. So asking about why people don't necessarily share their studies more like online, like making vlogs and things like that. Why people don't tend to do that as much as presumably this person would like. So it's more specifically like, why? It's because science is supposed to be an open thing and people don't tend to necessarily.
I can answer from my perspective, and that is that I'm a first year and I know nothing. So I'm very nervous about sharing anything I've learned or any knowledge because I don't really know it or understand it well enough yet. So I would feel like I don't want to misrepresent something, a topic.
But then you probably have a much better knowledge than most people of physics by the fact that you're doing a degree. Yeah. So I often forget how much specialised knowledge I have at this point. Like I feel like we were talking about imposter syndrome yesterday. I feel like I don't really know that much about how maps work or how specifically mobile maps or anything like that. And then
you're doing a PhD.
I'll talk to some new people like I did last night with all your friends, and I knew a lot of stuff that they didn't know and found it really interesting. And it's just being reminded that you do know stuff.
Yeah.
And if you did want to make some more videos talking about specifics about studying, it would be stuff that would be new information to the majority of people who would watch.
This is true.
So
I think they'd require a bit more planning.
Yes.
And again, it's something that is a bit effort.
Yeah. I think that's why I haven't done more science videos. That was one of my plans when I made my channel.
Yeah.
Like one of the first videos I did was talking about the Swansea Tidal Lagoon project. And very optimistically in 2015 said it should be starting construction by the end of the year, and that still hasn't happened. But yeah, the amount of research to make a video and fact check everything you're saying does take a lot of effort.
Definitely.
But I think more about like sharing your studies as such. Like I think the reason that postgrad students don't is because if I talk openly on the internet about my research, someone could steal it.
Yeah.
And odds are they wouldn't. But if you've declared this is what you're doing and then somebody publishes a paper before you, suddenly your research is useless. I have to fill a gap in the knowledge, and if someone publishes before me, I've got to find a new spin on my research. So I've talked about the vague concepts of what I'm doing, but I'm not going to talk about the specifics until after I have finished my thesis. And then I probably will do several videos talking about the details once I no longer have that restraint.
So it's probably doubting yourself and the time required.
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah.
So we will probably make those videos in the future.
Yes, one day.
One day. But that's a good question. I like that.
Okay, now we have an age-old question from a PhD student working from home. How do you avoid procrastination? I think the short answer is you don't.
Yeah.
How do you stop it becoming too serious, I think is more of a...
You go first, because you are a PhD student.
I think the trick is to have a dedicated space where you work, if possible. So if there is a place where you can put just a small desk or something, just to be like, this is only used for work and nothing else. And try and dedicate a few hours a day. And I often find once I start, I'm fine. It's the getting started first thing in the morning.
That mountain is huge.
Yeah, and as soon as you start writing, you've written, 100 words or so, it's fine. I just keep going and take a little break, and I'm happy to come back to it. It's just that beginning bit, it just feels like, I've got so much to do, I can't possibly. I'd much rather watch some more Friends on Netflix. So...
From my perspective, I'm not a PhD student, but I've had jobs. I've had a job, I've had desk jobs. And the way I approach my undergrad is similar to that. I try and keep a 9 to 5 kind of schedule. However, I know from experience, and I'm pretty sure it's not just me, when you have a normal job, you don't work 8 hours.
No.
You don't work 8 hours. You email, you chat to the people in the corridor, you have your lunch break, you have meetings where you're not really actually intensively working.
Yeah.
So, for me, what really helps is setting achievable targets. So, like, I'm going to make myself study for 3 or 4 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd much rather look back and go, well, I hit that 3 hours. I can now go to the pub and enjoy myself in the
Mm-hmm.
evening, rather than telling myself I need to work for 8 hours and procrastinating and only managing half an hour and feeling terrible about myself.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, doesn't work.
And I think also the whole achievable goals, it's having short-term goals.
Yeah.
Because I have an awful lot of, I need to write this chapter, which is going to be between 5 to 15,000 words, depending on the chapter. And that's several days of work, if not sometimes a few weeks, because you can't necessarily just write, you need to do other things as well.
Yeah.
And if you don't break that down, that just feels like too big a task. Whereas if it's, you've got to achieve something within a few days, then it's a bit more achievable. Like I used to find revising for exams, I would really intensely revise because I knew that it was just 1 or 2 days per exam and then it was done.
Yeah.
So it was just 2 awful weeks
Yeah.
and then I had time to recover. Whereas when you've got this ongoing thing, it can weigh you down and then you're more likely to procrastinate because it feels like this constant thing you're doing.
Yeah, so you need to sort of keep yourself in balance and in check a bit more.
Yeah.
But the 2 little things that I guess help me quite a lot when I do manage to sit down is Pomo-to-do, which I've seen a lot of people use, I think, as well.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a web app where you basically use the Pomodoro technique.
Yes,
It's just
I had
25-minute 5, 25
I had an app
5.
that I was doing that with at one point. I should probably...
I
get back
find
into
that
using
super helpful because when I look up and if I'm procrastinating because I've just finished a question I found particularly hard but I've still got 10 or 15 minutes on the clock and I look at it and it makes me go, come on, you can get your head down for another 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
music.
Yes. I mean, a similar thing to the Pomodoro. There's there's a few YouTubers who do it, but I joined in one that Rowan Ellis was doing, which was a productivity afternoon live stream. So it was, right guys, we're going to work, reflective bust. Right, we're going to work for 10 minutes now, and she'd just be live streaming on YouNow, I think it was, and we'd all do some work for 10 minutes, then she'd be like, right, okay, let's take a little break, chat, talk about what we did, and then it would be a 20-minute one, and work it up, and then do a few smaller ones towards the end. And those sorts of sessions I find really beneficial.
That's good.
So stuff like that with the Pomodoro technique, which is just, I think it's 20 minutes and then a 5-minute break.
25 and then 5, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
so
good.
And you can kind of, it helps you to it's just a long enough break for your brain to like reset.
Yep.
I think is the thing.
Think about your next task or continuing the current task.
Yeah.
Yeah. And interaction with people. For me, that's a huge thing.
That is the problem with working from home. Like, I'm not on my own, I have my boyfriend, but obviously he's at work all day, and then he comes home, and some days he's the only person that I will speak to. If I go to the supermarket, sometimes I use the self-checkout because it's faster, so I don't even have the brief conversation at the till.
You just speak to yourself all day.
Yeah. So now the next one is, how do you define mature student, and do you think it actually matters?
No.
So I would define a mature student personally as over 25, just because I think you've had enough of a different life experience by that point of like being independent, presumably having a job, responsibilities, and it just puts you in a slightly different mindset. But you're saying that for undergrad it's considered
21.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which to me feels like I was very much the same person at 18 and 21. I hadn't grown as a person much in that time.
Yeah, well, I went to university at 20 the first time round and felt like a normal undergrad.
Yeah.
Terrified to ask anyone questions ever.
So I'd put it sort of mid-20s and older.
I don't think it matters.
No. I think it only matters if you make it a thing in your head. If you've kind of a feeling like, I'm so much older than everyone, I can't relate to them, that's going to put a wall up between you. But like, for example, there was the guy in my undergrad who we all assumed was the same age as us. Turned out he was 26.
Huh.
And like, we just didn't realise it was really strange. It's like, wait, how are you that much older than us? Like, so if you don't make it a big deal, then it's fine.
The difficulties I've found are that I relate to the people on my course pretty well, I think. I really love my first year friends. But we have different motivations and different strategies. So because they're in halls, they'll go home to their halls and revise or hang out there. Whereas I like to keep everything in the 9 to 5 kind of way. I'm an early bird, so it's just me in the morning at university. So that's the difference, is I'm looking for other people keeping a similar schedule to me, rather than people my age.
Yeah.
So it's just about what are your goals, what are you trying to get out of it, more than age, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously I don't see an age thing for me, because I'm like the youngest you can be to do a PhD, pretty much, unless you skip the master's year. Because I went straight from 3 years of undergraduate degree, 1 year of a master's degree, and then to PhD. So when I started, there was no one who was younger than me. There were a fair few who were older, but that was never a problem. I don't even know the age of the majority of my friends, because it just never becomes a thing, you know.
Yeah, and similarly to working in a job, you have your colleagues, and everyone's from all different kind of walks of life, background, ages, that kind of thing, and everyone's just kind of on a level playing field. So yeah, it's not a big deal.
No. What was your single biggest obstacle doing your undergrad compared with your PhD? Ooh. I feel like I think they're similar in that for my undergrad it was getting through something I'd lost interest in. Mm-hmm. But I'm stubborn, and I decided that I was going to stick it out. And I managed to do that, and I ended up with a first, because I'm one of those people who just, you know...
Works hard.
Yeah. when I want something, I will work for it. But, so yeah, I think getting through that when I wasn't interested in the subject anymore was the biggest obstacle. But I think for my PhD, it's a similar thing of trying to keep working on something when I've been working on it for so long. Mm-hmm. Because at least when you're doing an undergraduate, you have new modules each semester, and you have several classes doing similar things but different topics, and there's always going to be something that you hate and something that's, you know, you enjoy more. But when you're just doing your PhD and you're working on one single project for 4 years, it wears thin.
Yeah.
And I think not losing motivation has been the biggest problem, and I definitely did lose motivation towards the end. I think it's got a bit better now, because I kind of sat back and reflected on why I'm doing this, and I think that helped quite a lot, because I felt like I'd lost interest in everything. But writing that script for, you know, some cool stuff about maps reminded me of what I like about this project. So I may be bored with all the data that I've collected and analysing it and talking about that, but the general concept is still interesting. So I think, yeah, kind of taking a step back and looking at why I'm doing it has helped.
And do you think getting through your undergrad has helped you sort of know that you can get
through I know I can get through something I don't massively enjoy. This isn't good advice, I feel like. How do you feel when you're the oldest in the class and the maturity is definitely a factor in your class? I think that's one for you.
I am the oldest in my year by 8 years, and I don't notice.
No?
No. And I looked around at the end of my exam yesterday and I was like, oh yeah, there's so many boys in here, I forget. So I think it matters more when you're in a smaller class, but when you're in a really big lecture theatre of 100 to 200 people, you're so focused on the content, and you've probably sat next to people that you know, or even if you haven't, that you're in your own world. But I think in smaller classes, I'll probably find, like in seminars and things like that, that's when it'll become become more of an issue. So last year in the foundation year, there were about a group of 6 or 7 of us that had similar backgrounds and experiences. So we tended to hang out together in the smaller classes. Oh, and your lecturers. Like, you talk to your lecturers as though they are normal people, because they are. So you end up having quite good relationships with your lecturers.
Yeah, and that's definitely easier when you're older, because I think when you're first going into uni, you still have a lecturers and teachers kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And it's not the same thing. There is a different, like, a much more casual relationship with your lecturers usually. Depends on the person, but most university staff are pretty chill.
Yeah, they are.
And
well, they're just people.
Yeah, and they don't need to have this whole, like, having authority over you thing like teachers have to do, because the teachers have to control the classroom,
keep you in check,
with kids who will be disruptive and don't want to be there. But obviously a university lecture hall is very different. I think the thing is that maturity isn't a factor. Like, by saying, you know, when the maturity is a factor in your class, I think by that point it generally isn't, because everyone is an adult.
It becomes a thing when you make it a thing.
Yeah.
But having said that, because I need to be around people, I really get the most out of my learning experience by being around people. So not having people to study with really annoyed me, but that wasn't because of maturity, that was just, again, different expectations.
Yeah. As a 70-year-old mature age student, after 8 years of insanity, The only question I have, 2 minutes out from the submission date, is are we there yet? I feel you. Yeah.
I have all of this to come.
Yeah, I think there does come a point where you've just been at it for so long. I think no matter what the age is that when you started, you feel like you've been doing it forever. It does kind of feel like, when is this going to end and I can move on? Like, I do feel that the opening song from Tangled, When Will My Life Begin, kind of describes you right now.
It's just quite a stressful period, I think.
Yeah.
No matter what. I love it at the moment, every minute of it, but
except maybe the exams.
Tiring. Yeah. The thing is, when term ended, I looked forward to the revision period because it gave me a chance to actually digest some of the material that I felt like I didn't have much, in-depth knowledge of. I could finally go over it in my own time because I am slow. But now we're in the middle of exams, I'm just like, oh, I want lectures back, please. So I'm never going to be happy.
Yeah, I mean, I want lectures back. I miss lectures. I miss the structure as much as anything.
That is
because
true.
now it's just, I have to just get on with this work and do it. And I really miss just being told to be here at this time and pay attention.
Weekly coursework, just, you have to do it.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's like it's back to that whole breaking things up. Short deadlines are really nice, rather than you have 4 years to do this thing, here's a few little like annual checks on how you're doing, but otherwise off you go.
From Gavin, who is doing the foundation year that I did last year, he says, I'd like to know how you stay motivated all year with studying and revision. And we have kind of touched on this a little bit.
Also, you don't.
Yeah, I guess that's the big thing, Gavin.
You don't stay motivated all year.
Yeah. But the end game is what keeps me going. So there'll be peaks and troughs of periods where I really don't feel like studying.
Yeah.
And then I will give myself a day off.
Yeah.
But I was
weekends. That's how you keep motivated.
Yeah.
Always allow yourself weekends, unless you have like a deadline that you really need to get done. Like there are exceptions, but most of the time don't intend to work on the weekend. If anyone tells you that's like an expectation of what you're supposed to do and like you're not doing enough work if you have weekends free, they're lying.
Yeah, they are.
They don't understand how like scheduling your time really works. You need breaks.
I've been working weekends because it's exams.
Yeah,
so I will maximise that time. But like you said earlier, it's a really short period. Yeah. So when I'm doing lectures and normal semester work, then I rarely work weekends. I'm so precious about my sleep. That's probably my number one priority, because otherwise it would kill me. Also food. Sleep, food, and then study.
Yes.
But
in that priority
order. Definitely. But I guess long term, I was speaking to someone who messaged me on my channel recently, Joelle, and she said that she's doing the same thing as me. She's studying physics in Sydney, and it's that fire in your belly, it's the passion, it's the reason that you're going through all of this to come back to university at this stage in your life that keeps you going, I think. It's why else are you here? If you're not here for that reason, then the motivation is going to be hard to muster. But if you know why you're here, then it keeps you going.
Well, I think we're out of questions.
I think we are out of questions.
So yes, I hope that you found that interesting. I found that interesting. I think that was a good chat.
Yeah, I enjoyed the questions and I learned a lot, so that's good.
So we're now going to film a video for Hannah's channel. So if you want to know what that was about, because I'm not quite sure what we're doing yet,
neither do I.
Click the link in the description / stuck up here, depending if I'm still able to do that, because YouTube are changing some rules apparently. So
damn you, YouTube. I don't even know how to do that, so it's probably going to be in the description for my videos.
So it will be in the description. So go see what Hannah does. Go subscribe to her channel. There's a lot of very interesting videos on there.
Thanks, Jules.
So thanks for watching, and see you again soon. I'm leaving that in.